right. Thanks for joining me for this. It's going to be the first time that I do something like this, really. And even though I made this record quite some time ago, I wanted to jump back in there and talk about it some more. So here's the cover. This album actually got printed up, so I'm just going to show you what was kind of the mock-up for the box and everything. We'll be talking today about the first tune on the album. The album is called Bejawiya, and the name comes from this album was made in collaboration with a really wonderful singer from the Sudan named Ahmed Saeed Abu Amna, and he is from the Beja community of Eastern Sudan, who also from Southeast Egypt, Eastern Sudan, and Eritrea. They live all around along the Red Sea coast, and Ahmed is from there. We met years ago in Cairo because he was friends with several cats that played the lyre, what they call the tambur in Sudan, called the tambur, and in Beja language is called the masankop, among other names, has several different names. And so I met Ahmed through these guys who I had already met, and I met 3 or 4 guys who, at the same time, who played the lyre, and I was just blown away. And so I started learning from them, and then Ahmed came for a visit. He just showed up for a visit and was staying there at the home of these guys where I would hang out all the time. It was on the roof of a building in downtown Cairo. And so that's where I would spend all of my time, and that's where I began playing the lyre and getting to know it, and then starting to hear Ahmed sing and play, and that's how we kind of became friends. And I started to get the idea to have this collaboration. So that's where the title came from, Bejawiya. Bejawiya could be, Bejawi means a Beja man, and so a Bejawiya would be a Beja woman. So it means that, and that's kind of where the idea for the cover art came from. But then also I took it to mean Bejawiya, meaning in the style of the Beja, in a Bejawiya way. In a Beja way. So that's where kind of I got the vibe from. So here's kind of the mock-up, and I'd just like to read this a little description for you. The music on this record has been a work in progress since the summer of 2009, when Miguel and Ahmed Saeed first met, and shortly after Miguel had begun playing the masankop, to which he was introduced by Sudanese musicians in Cairo. Ahmed Saeed had come from the Sudan to visit some of these same musicians, and when he and Miguel were introduced and started playing together, the vision for what would become Otaak Band began to take shape. In the traditional Beja music and the masankop, Miguel heard so much that he recognized the traditional American music, spirituals, and the blues. Ahmed Saeed's voice recalled for him the great American singers. As Miguel learned to play the masankop and the Beja songs, he began writing and arranging the music featured here. In August of 2011, Ahmed Saeed came to Cairo from his home in Port Sudan, which is on the Red Sea in eastern Sudan, and wrote lyrics in the Beja language for several of Miguel's original songs. The masankop's distinctive tone and the traditional Beja vocal style are the foundation of Otaak Band's sound. And at that time, May 2012, I had invited Ahmed Saeed again to Cairo to play some gigs, and we performed them. And those videos from those gigs, from one of those gigs in particular, are on this channel. So that was in 2012, right? So there's kind of the story once again. And yeah, what really fascinated me about Ahmed Saeed's voice, the style of singing, the scales that are used, and these are the kind of things that we'll be talking about in these breakdowns. All that just really, really, impressed upon me. And so this description mentions kind of one element of him writing new words in the Beja language for melodies of mine. I mean, this album is a collection of Beja traditional music, on the one hand. On another side, there are original melodies of Ahmad's, that are in this traditional style, but that are not exactly traditional songs, but they're in that style. And then there are melodies of mine that he then wrote words for. And Ahmed is just one of, to me, he's just one of the great voices. I don't know, there's not another singer like him. I've listened to a lot of Bija singers. There are many, well-known Bija singers. And the lyre, singing and playing the lyre is a foundational part of Bija culture. This is their instrument. And we're going to get into all the different facets of this instrument as it applies to making music and writing these songs and everything. So let's go ahead and jump into this first tune. It's called Ogna. And here I'm showing you the liner notes from the album, which we transliterated. On the left-hand side, you have the Bija language transliterated in English characters. It's not a written language, but there's a system developed to transliterate it. So on the left side, we have the transliterated Bija lyrics. Bija is not a written language, or Bidawit. Bidawit is the name of the language. It's not written, but we had a good friend named Jeanette Swackhammer who transliterated in a systematic way our songs. For example, and these are Ahmed Saeed's original words. And then Ahmed and I translated them together. We got the meaning right in English. So let's go ahead and jump into this first tune. This is called Ogna, and Gna means heart, and Ogna means the heart. So this song is called The Heart.
تشنينها دايكرنو نافر أدمي أوليني وغننا دور يهميني تشنينها دايكرني نافر أدمي أوليني وغننا دور يهميني
All right. Yeah, that may have been the one big drum lick I've ever pulled off. So, as you can see, it's kind of this. I called it a kind of country rock song. I thought of it as sort of a country rock song. Very clear kind of form. Verse, chorus, bridge, with the kind of breakdown in the middle and then the guitar solo at the end. That's just what I had in mind. Was this was kind of a rock song, but which first of all doesn't have a guitar. I mean, there's the guitar sort of playing a backing part, but it's not exactly a rhythm guitar part. All of the strumming that you hear is with the tambura. And so that was, we had Ahmed singing, obviously, Andre Segon on bass, and Muhammad Adil on guitar. And this whole record was recorded and mixed in Egypt, in Cairo, with the awesome Ala Al-Kashif, with whom we recently finished this year's record also, which we will eventually get to after I plow through this first album. So on here, let's see what we have. We've got, this Masankop, this red and green one that you see right here. I'm playing that on here. Playing a second one on here too. I've had several of these instruments at different times, man, but I've left them different places. And then just bass and guitar and drums, and that's it. I wanted to talk also a little bit about just the fact that Ahmed is singing in the Beja language on a song like this was the first of its kind. I mean, a song like this is really the first of its kind. This whole record really is the first recording of the Beja language music, Beja music, and non-traditional songs sung in the Beja language. This record was really the first time that had happened, that there had been a professional recording of Beja singing. And it was revolutionary. I mean, that's kind of a big word. And it was an innovation to have him sing in his language and in his style, which is what he does, on a song that if it was in English and we were playing guitar, you could hear a song like this on any radio station. I mean, it's got some other elements to it. You know, the bass line is just sort of, it's not a rock type bass line or whatever, but I mean, all the element, but the structure of the tune is a very typical pop song, you know? Intro, verse, chorus, breakdown, guitar solo, come back at the end. And for Ahmed, it took some getting used to, because when you play the tambur, and we'll see this later on in this series as we talk about some of the traditional songs, I'll talk about how they need to be adapted from their interpretation in just a regular gig setting to the album. But Beja music, when there's just one guy who's playing the tambura and singing, these songs can go on forever. And there's not a structure per se. I mean, the structure is that the song has a melody and it has some particular words. The song has its words and its melody and its rhythm, and that's all you have to work with. And so you just sing the melody and play the melody and sing the melody and play the melody, and you're singing the melody of your tambur. And you've got the tambur tuned to your voice. And so to sing, to have to count out bars, which is essential to having a structure, to following a structure, you got to be able to count. That was something he'd never done before. And the song is broken down in 8s and 4s. You know, these the verse and the chorus, these are all 4 and 8 bar phrases. And so that was the first time experience for him. And as far as I know, that's still the only song of its kind. A Bija rock song. All right, let's get into it. This song is in C. All right, it's the C, what I call a kind of open pentatonic scale. Two, 4, 5, and flat 7. Kind of the minor 11 chord, I guess. It's like the minor 11, scale. But really nice sound. Right now, I'm not tuned in C on the tambur because this instrument, if I tune it all the way down to the C of the song, it's too low and it just sounds terrible. And it can't go to the higher octave. So I'm in A right now. And on a harp style instrument, it just has this scale has a really great tone. And you hear the scale in music from around the world. Ganawa music from Morocco, they use the scale a lot in the gimbri. And I love the sound of this scale. And in this first example of, pairing the tambura with other tuned instruments, you see how all the other parts, none of the other parts use any other notes than this scale. Pentatonic scales give you a little bit of leeway in terms of kind of creating chords and certain tonalities. But you still can't really leave the scale and the related scales or the related chords. If you start to play stuff outside of the scale, then it's just clashing. It takes a little bit of finesse to kind of pull that off. Everybody else's part, the bass and the guitar, are just basically doubling, in some cases doubling, and in other cases playing a counter line, but they're all still playing these same notes. So at the top, little intro. First little pre-verse. So coming out of this. So coming out of this. And then it jumps into the verse. And the verse, this is the first time, don't really remember at which point I wrote this tune, but this is the first time that I started to use the harmonics strumming. As kind of a rhythm effect. And then when I kind of figured that out, I started doing that all over the place. I mean, most several songs start with some kind of intro doing this harmonic thing. And that's the dope thing about the pentatonic scale too, is that you just smack all the chords and then you can kind of put the bass note that you want to make your tonality. Although this song is kind of staying. This song is all staying in this tonality. Okay, but then I start doing, so I'm in the verse. I'm holding down this, and the interesting thing here is the bass line, which I sort of thought of as a rumba type bass line. And I always thought of this song as having a clave. And I always wanted to do the remix of it with as kind of a rumba song. That's just somehow the bass line that I came up with. That bass line has a little bit of an Afro-Cuban feel to it. So I've got this kind of chicken scratch harmonics thing going on. And the guitar is doing the little palm mute. Basically doubling the bass line. Yeah, I think it's just basically doubling the bass line. And that's it. And that's the whole groove. And then the drums are just kind of playing a backbeat. That's the lick that we catch together at the end of the phrase. And then in the next section, the kind of the pre-chorus. That's a typical example of the way that I have the instrument set up, the way that I have the strings tuned. Kind of fanning out from the inside. the way that the notes fit with my strumming sort of influenced the way that I ended up playing the lick, and that therefore I get the bass and the other instruments to double it. Scale to have, because you really need both octaves to make it sound cool. And then from there, kind of a breakdown. Is where I play that one big drum lick. And that's the whole tune. And it was so fun to play, man. It was always fun to play this one, because it's just to funk out on it. And I always wanted to remix it with this kind of Afro-Cuban thing happening. And that's it. Ogna. Thanks for watching.